What happens when one of Hollywood's toughest actors loses his cool on live television? In just 35 seconds, a simple question turned into an all-out war that ended with Liam Neeson storming off the Graham Norton show in front of a stunned audience. Subscribe now for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Last night on the Graham Norton show, what started as light banter quickly became one of the most shocking moments in talk show history. Liam Neeson sat on the famous red couch, looking relaxed in his dark suit, chatting casually with the other guests about their latest projects. The studio audience was buzzing with excitement. Phones were out, and everyone expected the usual fun and games that made this show so popular. Graham Norton, known for his cheeky humor and ability to get celebrities to open up, had been doing his usual warm-up routine. He'd made jokes about British weather, poked fun at himself, and gotten some easy laughs from the crowd. The energy was light, playful, exactly what people tuned in for. The first few minutes went smoothly. Graham asked Liam about his latest film project, and Liam gave thoughtful answers about working with the director and the challenging shoot schedule. The audience was engaged, laughing at Liam's stories about mishaps on set. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Then Graham shifted gears. "So, Liam," Graham said with his signature smile, leaning forward in his chair, his eyes twinkling with that mischievous look his fans knew so well. "I've been reading quite a bit about you lately. Some interesting opinions floating around about your career choices. I'm curious what you make of it all." Liam smiled politely, unsure where this was going. "What kind of opinions?" Graham glanced at his notes, then back at Liam. "Well, there's been some chatter, about how you've been quite selective about your film choices lately. And by selective, I mean some people are saying you're only taking roles for the paycheck these days. Same angry guy, different title. What do you say to that?" The audience laughed nervously. It was a bold question, even for Graham, who was known for pushing boundaries. A few people in the crowd exchanged uncomfortable glances. This felt different from his usual playful teasing. Liam's expression changed instantly. The warm smile disappeared. His jaw tightened, and he shifted in his seat, his large frame suddenly looking tense under the bright studio lights. "Excuse me?" Liam said, his voice dropping lower, that distinctive Irish accent becoming more pronounced. "Who exactly is saying that?" Graham, sensing he'd hit a nerve but seemingly unable to resist pushing further, tried to play it off with a laugh. He waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, just some critics here and there. Film reviewers, people on the internet. I mean, you've got to admit, you've done quite a few action films in the past decade. Like, a lot of them. Same kind of character, really. The guy with a particular set of skills who saves the day. Rinse and repeat, right?" He said it with a smile, but there was an edge to his voice that hadn't been there before. The other guests on the couch stayed very still, suddenly very interested in their own lap. The audience went quiet. You could feel the tension spreading through the studio like wildfire. The warm atmosphere that had existed just moments ago was gone, replaced by something cold and uncomfortable. Liam wasn't smiling anymore. His hands rested on his knees, but you could see his fingers curling slightly, tension building in every muscle. "Graham, I've been in this industry for over 40 years, Liam said, his voice controlled but with an undercurrent of anger that was impossible to miss. "I've worked with some of the greatest directors in cinema history. Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. I've poured my heart and soul into every single role I've taken, whether it's a massive blockbuster or a small independent film. So when you sit there and reduce my entire career to some kind of joke, yeah, I've got a problem with that." The silence in the studio was deafening. A cameraman adjusted his position, and the small sound seemed incredibly loud in the quiet space. Graham raised his hands defensively, but there was still a hint of that playful smile on his face, like he thought he could charm his way out of the situation. "Liam, come on. I'm not reducing anything. I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking. You've got to admit, the films are a bit samey, aren't they? How many times can you play the angry dad who beats up the bad guys? I mean, we've all seen Taken. We've seen Taken 2. We've seen Taken 3. Then we saw you do basically the same thing on a train, on a plane, in the snow. Where's the variety?" A few nervous laughs rippled through the audience, but they died quickly. This wasn't funny anymore. This was getting uncomfortable. Liam's eyes narrowed. You think it's that simple? You think I just show up, punch some people, and collect a check? Every one of those films employs hundreds of people. Crew members who need jobs. Stunt coordinators, set designers, costume departments. Those films put food on tables and pay mortgages. But sure, let's reduce it all to a punchline for your show. Graham's smile faltered slightly, but he pressed on. Maybe he thought he could still turn this into entertaining television. Maybe he genuinely didn't realize how badly this was going. I'm not trying to upset you, mate. I'm just having a conversation. This is what we do here. We chat, we have a bit of fun with things. A bit of fun? Liam's voice rose slightly. This is my life you're having a bit of fun with. These are choices I've made, roles I've taken for my own reasons. You don't know what goes into those decisions. You don't know what it's like to be offered a script and have to weigh it against your schedule, your family commitments, your own artistic desires. The other guests on the couch looked absolutely uncomfortable now. One of them, a young actress, looked like she wanted to crawl under the furniture. Another guest, a comedian, kept glancing between Liam and Graham with wide eyes, clearly unsure if he should try to intervene or stay quiet. Graham leaned back in his chair, and his tone shifted from playful to slightly defensive. Look, Liam, I've interviewed thousands of actors. Most of them can take a bit of ribbing about their work. It's part of the game. You promote your films, I ask questions, we have a laugh. That's how this works. Liam leaned forward, his hands gripping the armrest of the couch, his knuckles turning white. His 6'4" frame seemed even more imposing as he fixed Graham with an intense stare. Ribbing? Is that what you call this? There's a difference between good-natured teasing and what you're doing right now. You're not asking questions, Graham. You're making statements. You're passing judgment on my career, like you have any idea what it's like to be in my position. Graham's smile was completely gone now. His face flushed slightly, and you could see his jaw clench. I'm a talk show host, Liam. I ask provocative questions. That's literally my job. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't come on talk shows. The words hung in the air like a slap. Several audience members gasped audibly. This was crossing a line, and everyone knew it. Liam's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. You want to talk about jobs, Graham? Let's talk about your job. How many years have you been doing this show? How many times have you asked the same tired questions? How many times have you pulled out those funny photos or made guests play those silly games where they have to guess which celebrity said what? But I don't come on here and disrespect what you do. I don't sit here and suggest you're just phoning it in for a paycheck. Graham's face went from flushed to red. He sat up straighter in his chair, his professional demeanor starting to crack. Now hold on just a second. No, you hold on, Liam interrupted, his voice rising now, echoing through the studio. I came here tonight as a courtesy. I didn't have to be here. I could be at home with my family. I could be preparing for my next role. But I thought it would be nice to come on, chat, have a laugh, support the show. Instead, you ambush me with this nonsense about my career. You try to make me look like some has-been who's just cashing checks. The studio went completely silent. Even the crew members stopped what they were doing. A sound technician stood frozen with his headphones halfway to his ears. A camera operator let his camera droop slightly, too shocked to keep filming properly. This was not in the script. This was not how the Graham Norton show was supposed to go. Graham tried to regain control of the situation. His voice had a slight tremor in it now. Whether from anger or nerves, it was hard to tell. Liam, mate, I think you're taking this way too seriously. It's just a bit of fun, a bit of back and forth. That's what we do here. We poke at each other, we laugh it off, we move on. You're acting like I've personally attacked you. Because you have. Liam stood up from the couch abruptly, and his full height made him tower over everyone. Under the studio lights, he looked even more intimidating. His shadow fell across Graham's desk. You think hiding behind "it's just fun" makes it okay? You think you can say whatever you want about someone's life work and then laugh it off? Graham stood up too quickly, his chair rolling backward slightly. His face now showed real concern mixed with anger. The playful host persona was completely shattered. I never said you were washed up. Don't put words in my mouth, Liam. I was making an observation that a lot of people have made. If you're so sensitive about it, Maybe that says more about you than it does about me. Sensitive? Liam's laugh was harsh and humorless. I'm not being sensitive. I'm standing up for myself. There's a difference. And you implied it, Graham. You know exactly what you implied with your little comments and your smug smile. You wanted to get a rise out of me, wanted to create a moment for your show. Well, congratulations, you got your moment. One of the other guests, the young actress, finally found her voice. Maybe we should all just take a breath and stay out of this, both Liam and Graham said at the same time, not even looking at her. She sank back into the couch, her face pale. Graham pointed a finger at Liam, his hand shaking slightly. You know what your problem is? You can't handle honest criticism. Everyone in Hollywood walks on eggshells around actors like you. Oh, we can't say anything negative. Might hurt their feelings. Well, I've built this show on being honest, on asking the questions other people are afraid to ask. Honest? Liam's voice was incredulous. You call that honest? You're not a journalist, Graham. You're not some hard-hitting interviewer holding people accountable. You're a talk show host who makes jokes and plays games. And there's nothing wrong with that, except when you start pretending you're something more. The insult landed hard. Graham's face went from red to almost purple. How dare you? I've interviewed prime ministers, presidents, some of the biggest names in entertainment. This show has won awards. I've made careers on this show, given actors a platform to shine. You should be grateful you were even invited. That word, grateful. It hung in the air like a match dropped on gasoline. Grateful. Liam's voice was dangerously quiet now, which somehow felt even more intense than when he was shouting. Every word was measured, controlled, like he was fighting to keep himself in check. Let me tell you something, Graham Norton. I don't need your platform. I've been nominated for Academy Awards. I've won Golden Globes. I've been in films that have made billions of dollars. I've worked with directors who will be studied in film schools for generations. So don't you dare stand there and tell me I should be grateful to be on your television show. The audience was dead silent. Some people had their hands over their mouths. Others were filming on their phones, knowing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was real anger, real hurt, real conflict, playing out in real time. Graham's voice shook with barely controlled fury. You arrogant son of a bitch. You come on my show, you sit on my couch. You benefit from the exposure I give you. And then you have the audacity to talk down to me like I'm nothing? I never said you were nothing, Liam shot back. But you're acting like I owe you something. Like by coming here, I'm supposed to just sit and take whatever you throw at me. Well, I don't work that way. That was it. That was the moment everything exploded. That was it. That was the moment everything truly exploded. The point of no return. Can't take criticism? Liam's voice boomed through the studio, so loud that some people in the audience actually flinched. I've been criticized by the best in the business. I've had legendary directors tear apart my performances, scene by scene, take by take, and rebuild me into a better actor. I've read scathing reviews that actually had valid points to make. But there's a huge difference between constructive criticism and what you're doing here. You're not trying to help me. You're not trying to have a real conversation. You're just being a dick to get a reaction. The audience gasped collectively. The word echoed through the studio. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for the microphones to pick up. The other guests on the couch looked like they wished they could teleport somewhere else. The comedian's mouth was hanging open. The actress had her hands clasped together so tightly, her knuckles were white. Graham's eyes went wide, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water for a moment. Then his expression hardened into something cold and angry. "Excuse me? Did you just call me a dick? On my own show? This is my show, and I won't be spoken to like that. Not by you, not by anyone." "Your show?" Liam laughed, but there was no humor in it whatsoever. It was a bitter, harsh sound that sent chills through everyone watching. "Your show that's built on the backs of people like me, who agree to come on and promote our work? Your show that depends on celebrities giving you their time? Without guests, Graham, you're just a guy sitting in a fancy chair talking to himself. So maybe show a little respect." Graham's hands clenched into fists at his sides. A vein was visibly pulsing in his temple. "Respect? You want to talk about respect? You're the one who came on here with a chip on your shoulder. I've been nothing but welcoming, and you've turned this into a circus. Welcoming? Liam's voice was incredulous. You call what you did welcoming? You ambushed me, Graham. You brought up criticisms you knew would sting, and you did it with a smile on your face like it was all just a game. That's not welcoming. That's manipulation. Oh, please, Graham scoffed, throwing his hands up. Don't play the victim here. You're a grown man, a successful actor, and you can't handle a few tough questions? What about all those interviews where you talk about being this tough guy, this action star? Where's that toughness now? The insult was deliberate, calculated, and it hit its mark perfectly. Liam took a step closer to Graham, close enough that the host had to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. You want to see tough, Graham? Tough is standing here trying to have a reasonable conversation with someone who clearly doesn't give a damn about anything except making their show more dramatic. Tough is not losing my temper completely when every instinct is telling me to tell you exactly what I think of you. Graham didn't back away, but everyone could see the slight tension in his body, the way he braced himself. Oh, by all means, tell me what you really think. Let's drop all pretense here. Fine, Liam said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet again. You want to know what I think? I think you're a talented host who's forgotten what made him successful in the first place. You used to make people feel comfortable. You used to bring out the best in your guests. But somewhere along the way, you started caring more about creating viral moments than actually connecting with people. You became more interested in the spectacle than the substance. And that's really sad, Graham, because you're better than this. Or at least, you used to be. The words were like a punch to the gut. Graham's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: shock, hurt, anger, and then something cold and hard. How dare you, Graham said, his voice low and venomous. You don't know anything about me. You come on here for one night and think you can psychoanalyze me? Think you can tell me how to do my job? I've been doing this for years, successfully, while you've been making the same damn movie over and over again. There it was. The final blow. There it is, Liam said quietly, nodding slowly. There's the real Graham Norton. Not the charming host. Not the funny guy. Just someone who needs to tear others down to feel better about himself. You know what? I'm done here. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with your show. And I'm done pretending that this is professional. Good, Graham snapped back. Then leave. Walk off my show. Let everyone see what you're really like when someone dares to question you. I've won awards. I've been in films that will be remembered long after your show is canceled and forgotten. So don't you dare stand there and tell me I should be grateful. The two men stood facing each other, neither backing down. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The audience didn't know whether to look away or keep watching. It was like witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Some people were still filming on their phones, capturing every second of this unprecedented moment. The producer in the control room was frantically speaking into his headset, trying to figure out what to do. Should they cut to commercial? Should they let this play out? This was live television, at its most raw and unpredictable. Graham crossed his arms defensively, his face still flushed with anger. Well, if you feel that way, maybe you should just leave. If you can't handle honest conversation, if you're going to throw a tantrum every time someone challenges you, then maybe you're right. Maybe you shouldn't be here. A tantrum? Liam's voice rose again. You think this is a tantrum? This is me standing up for myself against someone who thought they could use me for entertainment. You wanted a moment, Graham? You wanted something memorable for your show? Well, congratulations. You got it. But it's not going to be the moment you hoped for. Maybe I should leave, Liam added, his voice dropping to an icy calm that was somehow more frightening than his anger. At least then I won't have to listen to any more of your self-important bullshit. At least then I won't have to sit here and pretend that this is professional or acceptable behavior from someone who calls himself a host. Graham's face went from red to purple, the color rising up his neck. His hands were shaking slightly, whether from rage or adrenaline. Fine. Leave then. Walk off my show. Let everyone see what a prima donna you really are. Let them see that the tough guy actor can't handle a little criticism without falling apart. Liam stepped even closer to Graham, looking down at him with an expression that mixed disgust and disappointment. Prima donna? I'm standing up for myself. I'm refusing to be disrespected on national television. I'm not going to sit here and let you mock my career, my choices, my life's work for your entertainment. If that makes me a prima donna in your eyes, then so be it. I'd rather be that than someone who tears others down for ratings. You know what your problem is, Liam? Graham said, his voice shaking with anger now, every word sharp and cutting. You can't handle the fact that your best days are behind you. Those action films you're so defensive about, they're all you've got left. The serious roles dried up, the Oscar nominations stopped coming, and now you're stuck playing the same character over and over, and deep down, somewhere inside, you know it. You know I'm right. That's why you're so angry. The words hung in the air like poison gas, toxic and spreading. Liam's face went completely still, all expression draining from it. His eyes went cold. For a long, terrible moment, everyone thought he might actually throw a punch. The security guards positioned by the stage doors tensed up, their hands moving to their radios, ready to intervene if this turned physical. But Liam didn't get physical. Instead, he did something that felt almost worse. He laughed, a cold, harsh, bitter laugh that sent actual chills through the studio. It was the laugh of someone who had just made a final decision, who had crossed a line in their mind that they wouldn't be crossing back over. You know what, Graham? You're not even worth it. Liam reached down and unclipped his microphone, letting it drop onto the couch. I've dealt with difficult people my entire career, but you might just be the worst. You hide behind your charm and your humor, but underneath it all, you're just another talk show host, desperate to stay relevant. Graham's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Get out. Get out of my studio right now. Oh, I'm going, Liam said, already walking toward the stage exit. But let me make one thing perfectly clear. This isn't about me not being able to take a joke. This is about you crossing a line. You don't get to insult people and then act surprised when they push back. Graham followed him, shouting now, You're making a huge mistake. Everyone's going to see this. Everyone's going to know what kind of person you really are. Liam stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one last time. The cameras captured everything. His face was a mixture of anger and disappointment. Let them see it then, Liam said. Let them see what happens when someone finally calls you out on your crap. Maybe it'll make you think twice before you try to tear down your next guest for a cheap laugh. With that, Liam Neeson walked off the Graham Norton show stage, past the stunned crew members, past the security guards, and straight out the door. The sound of its slamming echoed through the silent studio. Graham stood there, frozen, his face still flushed with anger. The audience didn't know what to do. Should they clap? Should they stay silent? This wasn't how the show was supposed to go. One of the other guests tried to break the tension with a nervous joke, but Graham raised his hand to stop them. He walked back to his chair and sat down heavily, running his hand through his hair. Well, he said into the microphone, his voice tight. That was unexpected. The audience gave a confused, scattered applause. But it was too late. The damage was done. The confrontation was over, but the shock of what just happened lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Graham tried to continue with the show, moving on to his other guests, but everyone could tell his heart wasn't in it anymore. He kept glancing at the empty spot on the couch where Liam had been sitting, as if he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. The makeup artist who had been standing backstage later told crew members that she'd seen Liam walking through the hallway, his face like stone, not saying a word to anyone. He walked straight to his dressing room, grabbed his coat, and left the building without looking back. In the studio, Graham wrapped up the show early. The energy was completely gone. The remaining guests did their best to keep things light, but it was impossible to ignore the elephant in the room, or rather, the missing actor from the room. As the cameras stopped rolling and the audience filed out, people couldn't stop talking about what they'd just witnessed. Some said Liam overreacted. Others said Graham pushed too far. But everyone agreed on one thing. They'd never seen anything like it. The crew started breaking down the set, moving around quietly, exchanging glances. This was going to be the talk of the industry. A confrontation this explosive, this raw, this real. It doesn't happen often, and when it does, it changes everything. Graham sat in his chair long after everyone else had left, staring at the empty studio. He'd been doing this show for years, had interviewed hundreds of celebrities, and never had anything like this happen. Part of him was angry. Part of him was embarrassed. But maybe, just maybe, a small part of him wondered if Liam had a point. But those thoughts would have to wait. Right now, all that mattered was that one of Hollywood's biggest stars had just walked off his show in the middle of filming, and the whole world was about to see why. The footage would be everywhere within hours. The moment when friendly banter turned into a full-blown argument. The moment when two strong personalities clashed, and neither was willing to back down. The moment when Liam Neeson decided he'd had enough and walked away, leaving Graham Norton speechless on his own show.